The hit that took down Northwest's most wanted gangster, Paul Ndomoy. Chapter 1: The Fall of a Notorious Gangster. The most feared man in Northwest was finally in handcuffs. But was it too late? For years, Paul Ndomoy ruled the streets of Jouberton with fear. At just 39, he had built a criminal empire that few dared to challenge. His name was whispered in taverns, spoken only in fear by those who knew what he was capable of. But on a cold May evening, his reign came to a sudden and unexpected end. The provincial anti-gang unit had been watching him for months, waiting for the perfect moment. That moment arrived when he was linked to the murder of 43-year-old Thabo Nsi. With enough evidence in hand, the police moved in, storming his hideout in Extension 13. Ndomoy barely reacted as officers placed him under arrest. He knew the game was over. A search of his home turned up a rifle magazine and rounds of ammunition. Sealing its fate. The once untouchable gangster was now just another criminal awaiting trial. But as he sat in the back of the police van, one thought lingered in his mind. The streets never forget, and they never forgive. Chapter 2: A Deadly Encounter. One moment, he was walking home. The next, he was lying in a pool of blood. It was a quiet evening in March 2022 when the trouble began. A man was walking home from a tavern with his friends, unaware of the danger ahead. Laughter filled the air as they made their way through the dimly lit streets, but their joy was short-lived. From the shadows, a figure emerged, Paul Ndomoy. His presence alone sent a chill through the group, but before they could react, he raised his rifle. Without hesitation, he pulled the trigger. A loud gunshot shattered the silence, and the man collapsed, clutching his chest.
Don't play! You wrote the fully freezing and got it up like as. You wrote a lalena program. You wrote the top like as fully freezing and got it and got one recon peggy. In the Tiaba Kaz and Omo Michael, friend, the question of Martola and the point to manage some topic in full. Rich gang money, concrete jungle in Vietnam. Young Sam and Satami Cook with young Faga and Pegamazan. You like I go on your put, Pegu come. Pega put, pega.
His friends screamed in terror, their voices lost in the night. Ndomoy stood over his victim for a moment, then turned and disappeared. Blood pooled on the pavement, a stark reminder that no one was safe. The man's last breath was carried away by the wind as the city of Jouberton held its breath. He thought he was untouchable, but even the most feared men leave behind evidence. The victim was rushed to the hospital, but there was nothing doctors could do. He was pronounced dead on arrival, adding yet another name to Jouberton's growing list of murders. The police, under mounting pressure, intensified their investigation. Witnesses were too afraid to speak, but evidence never stays hidden for long. A confidential tip led authorities to Ndomoy's hideout. When officers stormed his house, they found a rifle magazine and rounds of ammunition. The discovery was enough to link him to the crime and place him behind bars. Ndomoy was arrested on the spot, his reign of terror finally crumbling. As the news of his capture spread, some celebrated while others worried about what came next. The streets had seen too many like him come and go. Would this really be the end? Or was something worse about to unfold? Chapter 4: A Gang War Brews. The king was down, but the game was far from over. Ndomoy and his victim were both members of the same gang, the notorious Al-Qaeda. For years, tensions had been rising between different factions within the group. The murder of Thabo Nsiyi had only poured fuel on an already burning fire. Now, with Ndomoy behind bars, chaos threatened to consume the gang. His first court appearance was at the Klerksdorp Magistrates Court on the 11th of May, 2022. He was charged with murder and unlawful possession of ammunition, leaving him with little chance of freedom. Despite the weight of the evidence against him, he requested a formal bail application. The hearing was set for 18th of May, 2022, but the streets had already decided his fate. Rumors spread that powerful enemies were plotting revenge. Ndomoy thought prison would protect him, but in the world he came from, there was no such thing as safety. His time was running out, and he didn't even know it yet. When a gangster falls, the streets demand blood. Less than 2 months after Ndomoy's arrest, violence erupted once again. A 40-year-old man, rumored to be connected to the same gang, was shot dead in Jouberton. The attack was quick, brutal, and without mercy. Witnesses reported seeing a masked gunman pull the trigger before vanishing into the night. It was clear this was not just a killing, but a statement. The Al-Qaeda gang was in turmoil, and rival factions were settling scores. Fear spread through the community as everyone braced for more bloodshed. If Ndomoy had enemies before, he had even more now. Some believed he had ordered the hit from behind bars, while others suspected his rivals were making their move. Whatever the case, one thing was certain: the cycle of violence was far from over, and soon it would claim its most notorious victim yet. Chapter 6. The hunter becomes the hunted. He ruled the streets. Now, the streets came for him. On the 15th of July, 2022, Paul Ndomoy walked free, but only for a moment. He stood next to his car, chatting casually, unaware of the danger closing in. His enemies had been watching, waiting for the perfect moment. Then, in a flash, gunshots echoed through the streets. Ndomoy fell, his body riddled with bullets. Blood painted the pavement as his assassins moved with precision. The once feared gangster gasped for breath, his power slipping away with each heartbeat. It was a public execution, one meant to send a message. The killers didn't just want him dead. They wanted everyone to know they had won. His reign ended in the same violence he had once thrived in. The hunter had become the hunted, and the game was over. Execution. They didn't just kill him, they destroyed him. The attack was swift, but what came next was pure savagery. As Ndomoy lay lifeless, his killers weren't satisfied. They pulled out machetes and did the unthinkable. In an act of ultimate humiliation, they chopped off his manhood. It was a brutal message to his gang. The old order was gone. Witnesses stood frozen in horror, too afraid to intervene. The killers then disappeared into the night, leaving behind a bloody warning. For years, Ndomoy had struck fear into others. Now, his death would haunt the city. The people of Jouberton knew what this meant. A new power was rising, and more blood would be spilled before order was restored. The streets never forget, and this was far from the end. Chapter 8. A mystery that remains. The body lay cold, but the case was still hot. Northwest Police spokesperson Brigadier Sabata addressed the media shortly after the killing. The motive of the incident is yet to be determined, he said, though everyone already knew the truth. This was not just a murder, it was an execution. Ndomoy had crossed too many people, and one of them finally got their revenge. The police launched an investigation, but the streets remained silent. No one was willing to speak, knowing that the next bullet could have their name on it. The killers vanished, leaving behind more questions than answers. As days turned into weeks, the case went cold, but the fear remained, lingering in the air like smoke from a gun. The reign of Paul Ndomoy was over, but his death left a void waiting to be filled. And in the world of gangs, power never stays unclaimed for long.
So ring again.